You're sitting behind the wheel of a new car, and it's a grand and glorious feeling. The make and model, it doesn't matter. They're all good, big and small, from the least to the most expensive. Each has its own loyal following among the millions of American motorists. Behind every forward step in their design and construction is the driving force of competition, the unique American tradition of never being satisfied. As a result, all modern cars are capable of outstanding performance and mileage economy. The same high degree of performance and mileage economy is built into modern gasolines. Their quality and potential performance are checked regularly under carefully controlled laboratory conditions. But the performance predicted in the laboratory isn't taken for granted. It's proved by a continual program of road testing under actual everyday driving conditions in specially equipped test cars, in the cars of company employees, and in hundreds of privately owned cars. In giant outdoor proving grounds, the automobile industry also tests its products regularly. But here, as in a laboratory, a car is driven under carefully controlled conditions. Such testing doesn't compare a car with competitive makes and models, all running at the same time, under the same conditions, on the same brand of gasoline, and in the hands of regular, non-professional drivers. That was the idea behind the 1950 Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run, to provide one great common proving ground for all American cars, to enable motorists to get more of the performance built into their cars. For the automobile industry, here was the one competitive opportunity to prove the exceptional performance and mileage economy of today's cars when equally matched over the same road and under the same conditions using the same improved gasoline. It was hoped that the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run would point the way to better performance and economy from every car, no matter what its make or model, its age or mileage, no matter where, how much, or how little it was driven. The city of Los Angeles made an ideal starting point for the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run. With an average of about one car for every two people, almost double the national figure, Los Angeles has become the motoring capital of the West, if not the entire country. Its sea level location, warm year-round temperatures, heavy volume of traffic, these and other factors provided a variety of driving conditions for the beginning of the run. The finishing point, 751 3/10 miles away at the Grand Canyon, offered a sharp contrast. Its high elevation, over 7,000 feet above sea level, its much lower temperatures and differences in humidity and atmospheric pressure imposed an extreme change on cars and gasoline. Between these 2 points, Los Angeles and the Grand Canyon, there is practically every variation of geographic, weather, and driving conditions to be found in the United States. In selecting the route, the American Automobile Association, which approved and supervised the entire event, planned for a test of car power as well as economy. For example, within the first 300 miles alone, the road climbs approximately 5,000 feet above sea level 3 times, then dives to 178 feet below sea level in Death Valley. Weather conditions vary as widely. According to the records of the United States Weather Bureau, average temperatures along the route during February range from 89 above to 10 below zero, a spread of nearly 100 degrees. For one thing, that's a tough test of a gasoline's volatility, which plays an important part in both performance and economy. The route included 61 miles of city driving, 335 miles of mountain roads, and 355 miles of fairly level highway. A total of 751 3/10 miles in which is found all types of safety regulations, traffic laws and speed limits, all of which had to be strictly obeyed during the run. Nevertheless, in order to prevent loafing to stretch miles per gallon, all cars in the event had to finish within a time limit of 18.5 hours. Here was a run that packed into only 2 days practically every condition encountered in a full year's driving. As soon as the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run was announced, applications began pouring in. Cadillac, Chevrolet, Chrysler, DeSoto, Dodge, Ford, Frazer, Hudson, Kaiser, Lincoln, Mercury, Nash, Oldsmobile, Packard, Plymouth, Studebaker, Willys. To make sure of fair competition, 10 different classes were set up according to price ranges. A total of 17 makes and 31 models, representing practically every American make of car, competed in the event. A first, second, and third prize was established for each division, as well as a special award for the overall or sweepstakes winner. All cars entered had to be delivered to a specified area in Los Angeles where they were impounded, placed completely in the custody of 3A officials. Every entry had to be strictly a stock model car. To make absolutely sure of that, the cars were literally torn completely apart and examined by 3A officials before being qualified for the run. Checking the engine began with the block itself, measuring the cylinder bore. Then followed inspections and measurements on valves, valve openings, and valve timing, on pistons and piston rings, connecting rod and main bearings, carburetor floats and jets, spark plug settings, distributors, even fan blades. A car's lubrication, as well as its design and construction, had to be strictly stock status too. Only regular stock Mobil products were permitted, and the authority for the proper weights and grades of lubricants for every part of the car was the Mobil lubrication disc chart. All gear cases then were serviced with the specified grade of Mobilube gear oil. All chassis fittings were lubricated with the specified type of Mobilgrease to minimize gas-wasting friction. All cooling systems were protected with Mobil Permazone against the danger of freeze-ups threatened by high altitudes during the run. And stock Mobiloil was used in all engines to ensure full power and complete lubrication protection over the extreme range of temperatures that could be expected. After lubrication, each car was run on a dynamometer, and a motor analyzer was used to check the speedometer, gear ratio and transmission, as well as the engine speed, in revolutions per minute, the engine vacuum, and other factors. It took 7 long sheets to fill in the information required on each car. All in all, a total of 274 inspections before a car received its sticker signifying stock car status. Next, each car had to be weighed accurately. This was important since performance was to be rated on a ton miles per gallon formula. That is, the weight of every car and its crew was multiplied by the miles covered and the total divided by the number of gallons of gasoline consumed. This gave true relative performance results regardless of the size and weight of any car. The total weight of each car's crew had to equal at least 750 pounds, since it was figured that this is the normal load carried by the average motorist on a trip. If it didn't, lead weights were placed in the trunk compartment to bring the car's load up to the required total. The method used to check gasoline consumption was accurate to within 1/100th of a gallon. First, the car was jacked up until it was absolutely level. Next, a standard length rule was placed alongside the fender below the opening for the gas tank. Then a level mark was painted on the car at this point. Only Mobilgas and Mobilgas Special were used, the same gasolines that can be obtained at neighborhood service stations. Each entrant had the choice of regular or premium, the grade selected being shown by a sticker. From the time the cars entered the Los Angeles impound area until they left, they were under the complete control of the 3As. From the impound area, the cars were driven to the General Petroleum Garage to await the start of the run. Here, too, the cars remained under the constant control of 3A officials who also supervised all final preparations. All tires were checked and pressures adjusted using one type of standard bottled air. Crankcase oil was checked once again to be sure it was completely up to level. Then the hood was carefully resealed. Each car was leveled up using the mark previously determined at the impound area. The gas tank was topped off. The gas level was checked with a hand gauge. The slightest amount of overage was withdrawn with a bulb syringe. The gas level was checked again. And finally, the gas tank was resealed once more. Shortly before 3 a.m. on the first day of the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run, the cars were pushed from the garage to the starting line. According to the rules, once the gasoline tanks had been filled and sealed, engines could not be started until the cars were about to get underway. All drivers and relief drivers were non-professional and had to be approved by the contest board of the AAA. Each car carried an official observer, also approved by the 3As. If connected with an automobile company or car dealer, he was assigned to a competitive make of car. This provided a positive check to be sure that all rules and regulations would be strictly obeyed, since no official observer rode in a car in which he had the slightest interest. Despite the extremely early hour, a crowd of interested spectators was on hand, as well as members of the press. Many of the most prominent automobile men in the United States came from all over the country to witness the colorful event. Officials and drivers checked last-minute details as excitement began to mount. Other, more pleasant details were taken care of, too. Good luck wishes, for instance. Here was the end point of weeks, even months of long, careful, intensive preparation. The last few minutes of wondering, worrying, hurrying, hoping. The seconds seemed to drag by as the starting time drew near. The start was set for 3 o'clock, and on the dot, the green flag dropped for the first car to get underway. The cars were flagged off at 1-minute intervals, with no chance to warm up the chilled, long idle engines. Slow, easy starting was the order of the day, with these drivers who were out for maximum gasoline economy. For the same reason, the cars were shifted as quickly as possible into gas-saving high gear. Through the darkened city, the cavalcade headed north toward Pasadena and the Mojave Desert beyond. By the time the first faint rays of dawn appeared, good mileage already had been covered. Early morning brought the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountains into view. The official observers saw to it that there was no trick driving, such as coasting downhill to save gas. The cars had to be in gear at all times. Although the drivers paid little attention to it, their route took them through some of the most scenic country in America. Here's what they'd been looking for: the first official stopping place, Lone Pine, just 2 miles further on. The high school band headed a rousing welcome by what seemed to be the entire population of Lone Pine, the gateway to the high Sierras. At the Lone Pine refueling station, which was a compulsory stop, officials of the run shivered with cold while waiting for the cars to arrive. Even though this was not a speed event, the drivers had their minds on the 18.5-hour limit, so no time was lost in servicing the cars. However, as at every other point, a AAA official was on hand to see that all rules were obeyed. The driver could order as much gasoline as he wanted, stock gasoline of the same grade with which he started out. But if he asked for more than he needed, the car was charged with what he ordered, not with what it took to fill the tank. A wrong guess could be a serious handicap. With tanks refilled, the cars headed from Lone Pine toward the southeast, starting another steep climb. Even at this early hour, one group of young spectators was up to watch the cars go by. Like everybody else, they probably had their favorites too. Past Keeler, California, the cars were checked by an unseen observer, the California Highway Patrol. Patrol cars spotted along the route reported progress of the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run by radio. From 5,160 feet at the top of the Argus Range, the road dropped sharply into the Panamint Valley. This part of the run covered extremely steep grades, provided a severe practical check of hill climbing ability of gasoline, of transmissions and gear ratios. From the bottom of the Panamint Valley, the cars climbed up to Towns Pass, elevation 4,956 feet. The roller coaster ride continued as the cars dropped down into Death Valley with another sharp change in driving conditions. At Death Valley Monument headquarters, 3A officials checked the passage of each car and noted the time of day. Death Valley presents to the visitor a wealth of color, blended by nature into constantly changing patterns. The pastel colors of the barren rocks, the browns and purples of the mountain range, the white expanses of salt and alkali, all blend to form a scenic wonderland that stands out sharply in the dry desert air. But while a treat to the eyes, the valley subjected the cars in the run to an abrupt switch from cold to hot weather driving. All variations in driving conditions were accurately recorded during the run by the crew of a specially equipped laboratory car, which had also been approved by the AAA. Instruments within the car revealed exactly the car's operating conditions and how these conditions changed with variations in temperature, altitude, humidity, and other factors. In addition, the crew also made and recorded observations on weather conditions along the route, including the degree of wind velocity. On across the valley the road ran, still going lower and lower until the cars, now headed south, passed Furnace Creek Ranch, 178 feet below sea level, lowest point on the run. At any point where there could be doubt as to the correct route, 3A officials were on hand to guide the drivers. By now, the cars traveling since 3 o'clock in the morning had covered over 300 miles. But there was still plenty of mileage to go to make the distance that had been set for the first day's run. A short distance north of Death Valley Junction, a welcome signpost appeared, the Nevada state line. That left just about another 100 miles to Las Vegas, the overnight stopping place. Las Vegas was a welcome sight to the car crews, but tired as they were, there were still things to be done before calling it a day. First, the cars had to be gassed up again for an early start the next morning. There were 3 refueling stations in Las Vegas, and each car was assigned to one of the 3. After refilling the tanks, checking the oil and any other needs, the cars were driven on to the Las Vegas impound lot. Just outside the impound lot, their arrival was timed to be sure they had finished this part of the run within the limit of 11 hours and 15 minutes set by the 3As. Then the cars were driven on into the impound lot, where, as at Los Angeles, they were kept under complete control of 3A officials. Here, the cars were lined up abreast, 5 feet apart, for the final checking and inspection of the day. No troubles of any kind were reported, either with the cars or the gasoline used. Top-notch performance had been delivered by both. At the finish of each car's inspection, the keys were turned over to a 3A official, and only then was the crew permitted to leave. In order to save time, particularly for the early start next morning, all occupants of each car were assigned together at one of the 4 hotels: the Flamingo, the Thunderbird, the Last Frontier, and El Rancho Vegas. With its many interesting reminders of days gone by, the pioneer city of Las Vegas has become one of the nation's most popular vacation resorts. A fascinating combination of the old and the new, the city literally rose from the desert sands in a single day. May 15th, 1905. Today, Las Vegas has become famed as the Monte Carlo of the West. Early the next morning, the crews gathered together again at the Las Vegas impound lot. The time of departure was 7:30 a.m., and as at Los Angeles, the cars were to start at 1-minute intervals. Officials were busy checking ballast and entering all other information required on their reports. With nearly 2/3 of the run behind them, the crews were eager to get underway for the finish line at the Grand Canyon. But they weren't so eager as to waste any of their precious gasoline on jackrabbit starts. Drivers also were alert on all safety regulations, which had to be obeyed to the letter of the law if penalties or even disqualifications were to be avoided. Out on the open highway again, the cars headed south, maintaining the smooth, steady pace that assures maximum mileage economy on the open road. A short distance to the north, Lake Mead came into view, the largest lake by volume in the world. Then came notice of a public utility and sightseeing wonder. Hoover Dam, an attraction that draws more than 1.5 million tourists yearly. Highest in the world, the dam extends downward 726 feet to its base in solid rock. The lake behind the dam supplies irrigation and drinking water to California and Arizona, provides industrial power and light for 3 states. The cars headed across the top of the dam, the other side of which brought them into the state of Arizona. Here the cars had to travel a series of switchbacks, up steep grades that provided another stiff test of the gasoline's smooth, knockless, hill-climbing power. Beyond the dam and to the south was Kingman, part of a great cattle-raising area. Farther on, another interested audience of farmers and school children watched the cars go by. Up ahead was an Arizona agricultural inspection station where all cars normally are checked. However, the cars in the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run were waved on through having been cleared with state authorities before leaving Las Vegas. The town of Kingman brought a break in the monotony of highway driving with its brief stretch of town traffic. Here again, observers kept sharp watch to be sure that all traffic regulations were obeyed. Then the cars were out on the open road again for another long stretch of country driving. The Ashfork, Arizona Timing Station was the next point of interest. The time limit of 5 hours and 15 minutes had been set for the distance between Las Vegas and Ashfork, and 3A officials timed the passage of every car. Under the watchful eye of his car's observer, no driver attempted any illegal passing, even where trailing a truck might mean staying in lower gears that use up more gasoline. Beyond Ashfork, the road began to climb steadily again. Mountain scenery appeared as the elevation grew to nearly 7,000 feet. An official refueling station had been set up in Williams, Arizona. However, this was not a compulsory stop. If a car had sufficient gasoline, it continued on to the Grand Canyon. If it didn't, this was the last permissible stop before the finish of the run. After a slight drop beyond Williams, the road began to climb again as the cars headed for Kaibab National Forest. While the roads had been cleared, there was plenty of snow in evidence, a sharp contrast with the hot, dry bed of Death Valley through which the cars had passed only the day before. Around a bend in the road, the cars swung and passed through the entrance to Grand Canyon National Park. Only a short distance remained now before the long, wearing grind on cars and crews would be over. But the excitement wasn't over. It was just beginning. The excitement that comes of clean, hard competition in a fair, well-run contest. Down the home stretch, the cars headed for the finish line and the conclusion of the 1950 Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run. The time of arrival of each car was carefully noted at the last official timing station. One by one, the cars were flagged to a halt at the end of 751 3/10 miles of steady driving. A whole year's driving conditions in only 2 days, and always under the complete, exacting supervision and control of impartial officials of the American Automobile Association. For a driver, it felt good to relax now that his part of the job was finished. But for others, there was still plenty of work to be done. Most important, the exact quantity of gasoline used by each car had to be accurately determined. To do this, the gas tanks were refilled to precisely the same level as at the start of the run, and the amount needed in each case was recorded. Then, after final inspection and checking, the cars moved on to the Grand Canyon impound area. Here they were lined up before the stand, from which the results were to be announced next morning. Earlier in the day, a special train had arrived, carrying, among others, many of the top executives and engineers of the automobile and petroleum industries. Also on hand was a whole busload of members of the press, attracted by the national interest in the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run. Meanwhile, a staff of technicians worked far into the night, checking observers' reports, recording the quantities of gasoline charged to each car, compiling, checking, and rechecking results on the established ton-miles per gallon formula. 10 o'clock the next morning found all the cars and their crews lined up before the reviewing stand, waiting for the announcement of results and the awarding of trophies. Among those officiating at the ceremonies was C.S. Biesmeyer, Executive Vice President of the General Petroleum Corporation, a flying Red Horse company. A.C. Pillsbury, Regional Director of the Contest Board of the American Automobile Association. T.E. Myers, better known as Pop Myers, Vice President of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Governor Dan Garvey, who acted as host for the state of Arizona, having flown up to take part in the awards. Who won? In view of the amazing results turned in by all entries, it is only fair to say that every car was a winner. It must be remembered that some models were built with special emphasis on comfort, ease of handling, appearance, automatic features, and extra power. Even so, 22 out of the 31 cars obtained better than 20 miles to the gallon. The average for all 31 cars was over 50 ton-miles per gallon, better than 22 road miles per gallon. Such surprising results were a revelation even to the automotive industry's designers and engineers, opened up new lines of thought on trends in gear ratios, transmissions, higher compression ratios, and other car features. As proved by the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run, just how much performance economy the average motorist can get out of his car depends on three things. First, the condition in which he keeps it. Second, the kind of gasoline he uses. And third, the way he drives. For example, on the run, every driver stayed within local speed limits and obeyed every safety regulation. Yet, none of the drivers lost any time. Even so, none of them used a heavy foot on the gas when starting off or when picking up speed. Take the driver who likes to get the jump on everybody else. Such quick starts can step up gasoline consumption from 50 to 60%. Very often, the fast starter has to hit the brakes hard at the next light, wasting brake lining and tires as well as gasoline. Of course, everybody knows that the faster you drive, the more gas you use. But did you know that you get 20 to 30% less mileage at 60 miles an hour than at 40? These are major tips on driving that can affect gasoline economy. Start off smoothly. Shift into high as soon as possible. Don't ride the clutch. Use the engine as a brake. Drive at a steady rate of speed. Adjust speed in traffic according to that of other cars and according to the frequency of traffic light changes. Now, how about the cars themselves, the way they're maintained and serviced? As for the cars in the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run, of course, we must remember that every one was a new 1950 model in the pink of condition. Maybe you and I can't keep our cars that way for every 750 miles we cover. But just like the cars in the run, we can have ours tuned and adjusted right for the gasoline we're using, whether it's regular or premium. Improper timing can rob a motorist of plenty of engine performance and economy. And worn, fouled, or defective spark plugs can add 10% to our gasoline bill. So it pays to keep the engine tuned up correctly. Once a car is properly adjusted, keeping it in good condition is equally important. For example, the neglect of any service that results in increased friction can cause a serious waste of gasoline. That's why gear oil should be replaced according to recommendations, why the chassis should be lubricated regularly, why crankcase oil should be changed at the proper time. Too heavy a crankcase oil alone can reduce mileage by 10%. It takes an event like the Mobilgas Grand Canyon Run to open the eyes of the motoring world to the great potential of performance and economy built into today's improved cars and improved gasolines by their makers. It's up to the motorist to get as much as possible of that potential by having his car properly adjusted, by keeping it in good condition through regular servicing, by driving it properly and sensibly. These are the things that can improve any car's performance and mileage per gallon, that can make every run an economy run for its owner.